Welcome back. I'm Bob Laliberte with theCUBE Research, joined once again by Zeus Kerravala from ZK Research. Now, we recently explored the Fabrix.ai platform, which brings intelligence, guardrails, and automation together. Now, we'll take that conversation one step further into the real world to look at how customers are actually using these capabilities today.
Yeah, I'm excited about this session. This is all about agentic use cases, practical examples of autonomous AI agents driving value across IT operations, security, and also service management. So welcome back to Shailesh Manjrekar, Chief Marketing Officer and AI Officer at Fabrix.ai. Also joining us, Rached Blili, distinguished engineer who will walk us through a lot of the use cases, and also Bhaskar Krishnamsetty, Chief Product Officer of Fabrix.ai.
Bhaskar, before we jump into the specific use cases, help us, to set the stage. How are enterprises approaching agentic operations today? What pain points are these use cases designed to solve?
Yeah, thank you, Bob. What did you say, pain points? I don't think any pain points. AI solves everything, right? But I mean, I must say there is a lot of excitement from our customers to embrace agentic AI and all. But at the same time, there is some hesitation and also fragmentation how they are approaching, right? Either they try isolated agents or try some LLM copilots. When the hesitation comes is when they want to operationalize to the production environment to scale. I think we should understand it's same thing happened with the cloud transformation, right? The same concerns they have: security, trust, observability. I think for AI, the extra burden on them or the concern is accuracy, because they're used to deterministic outcomes, deterministic processes, but now it is moving into stochastic and probabilistic outcomes, right? So those are some of the concerns, and from a platform point of view, we kept those in mind. As I said again, security, data protection, observability, governance, these are very important. We made sure those pain points are addressed from a platform point of view. But in an agentic operations, there are also typical pain points. We usually, our agents categorize in 4 categories. One is the knowledge agent, because it is very hard to sift through your entire knowledge database and glean the insights. Some agents are in that category. Assistant agents, obviously every operator now needs a co-pilot and co-agent so that they can find out what they would like from their entire ecosystem. The third one is the important one: orchestrate agents. This is where they solve vertical domain-specific solution use cases, like for example in service provider, telco assurance and service delivery, so on and so forth. And the last one is the action agents, which we will demonstrate in AIOps category, like the auto remediation agents, where they can perform certain tasks based on reasoning or some conditions. So we will go over the use cases in like AIOps, SecOps, network ops, and SRE ops. And our intent is our customers can even extend beyond these to address their use cases.
So Bhaskar, it seems like we're at the same inflection point we were with AIOps 5 years ago, except the difference is now the agents act instead of just assisting. And so would you agree that's really where the value creation comes from?
Great question, because our history of Fabrix before Cloud Fabrix, we are one of the early adopters or pioneers of AIOps, domain-agnostic AIOps vendors, even before Gartner coined in 2018. It used to be called ITOA, IT Operational Analytics. Even at that point, AIOps is very high touch, right? Even at the time, operationalizing, POC itself used to take 6 months because you need to connect to all the data sources across hybrid data, edge, cloud, etc., right? But over the years, I would say some front-end use cases, for example, data integration, event correlation, and anomaly detection have matured and fairly autonomous, right? But when it comes to the downstream use cases, the follow-on use cases, whether it is RCA or root cause analysis or auto remediation, it's kind of manual and semi-automated. I think that is where AI agents can really help and fill those gaps. The true promise, the holy grail of AIOps, from ingestion to detection to resolution, now with these AI agents filling those gaps, our customers can really take that next step.
That sounds good. Well, why don't we get started with the network agent? Kind of near and dear to my heart, having the network in there. And I know this is something that's really going to help the lab engineer get through those routine device checks, right, to ensure that it's in compliance with a set of predefined rules. So why don't you walk us through what that looks like and how this is going to change?
Yeah, so Bob, I mean, just before we walk into the use cases, right, one of the important points you raised is about the enterprise readiness, right? And we wanted to highlight how our platform actually has the capabilities to what I call provide a full agentic stack, right? The second is this is a purpose-built platform, and the third is enterprise grade, right? So we'll actually show you some of the platform capabilities, which then kind of build up to the use cases and the agents. So Rashid, if you can take a minute just to show some of the capabilities like guardrails, prompt templates, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Shailesh. Yeah, so I'd be happy to walk you through a few things with regard to that. So one of the key concepts to understand with how Fabrix.ai agents are built is that we unify a lot of the enterprise features under something we call the AI persona. And the persona, I can show you an example here on the screen. You can see in our UI, we have several personas listed here. If I just take one of those personas and open it up, you'll be able to see some of the things that are kind of gathered underneath that. Obviously, the models that are available to that persona are specified here, as well as the specific guardrails that are going to be used in order to protect and make sure that the prompts that are coming in to the model are checked for safety compliance. And then over here is where we specify the various tools that are available to that particular agent, that particular persona, as well as something we call prompt templates, which I'll show you in a little bit more detail. But basically, we're scoping the agent here. We're giving it its specific realm of operational control and its permissions and its specific guardrails.
Yeah, and this is where we were talking about earlier, prompt templates, right? So the deterministic agentic orchestration, right? So the prompt templates bring in a little bit of determinism to the LLMs, right? So that's what he was talking about. And everything in the platform talks kind of is guided by the AI personas, right? What kind of data set access you would have, what kind of MCP tools you can have, all is guided through the to the personas.
All right, so the other thing that the persona, as I just showed, sets is going to be the access to the prompt templates that Shailesh was just talking about. And the prompt templates, as again Shailesh mentioned, is a way for the agents to lock down their behavior under specific operational circumstances. Think of it as an instruction manual that tells the agent how to address a specific class of problems. This prompt template is selected dynamically and semantically by the agent at runtime. So there's an evaluation of the request that's coming in, and the agent is given a list of possible prompt templates that it has access to, and it selects the appropriate one based on the circumstance. You can see here some of them are listed. I won't go into any details. But in addition, it has access to a set of tools that are exposed via the industry standard MCP. And these tools are gathered in what we call tool sets. I can show you an example, for example, of this security operations tool set. It's giving the agent the tools that it needs in order to accomplish its task. So when we're going to go through the first use case, you're going to see all of this stuff being leveraged by the agent as it runs.
Yeah, and just wanted to make another point about MCP. This is one of our key differentiators. So we have about 320 MCP tools, but what kind of sets us apart is that MCP server is dynamically programmable, right? So you just provide us APIs through an ecosystem partner, and we'll quickly be able to turn that into an MCP tool set, right? So that shrinks your POV cycles significantly, okay?
Yeah, so the first agent we wanted to show you was the network configuration compliance agent you were alluding to, Bob. Yeah. So I'm showing you here just I'm showing you the interaction with that agent. Now keep in mind these agents do run autonomously in the background, but just for demonstration purposes, it's easier to show the interactive version. So I'm asking here to evaluate the compliance of a specific device in my lab network. And then underneath you can see that it's running a series of tools. Some of them are tools that prepare the agent for its task, where it's, for example, loading a very specific prompt template here that teaches it how to run a network configuration compliance job. it gets all of these instructions, and then it runs a series of commands like retrieving the list of compliance rules and comparing those against the actual devices in the lab environment, and then produces a comprehensive report at the end that gives me a summary as well as detailed information about where the particular device was compliant, non-compliant, which rule that maps to, and what the remediation options are.
Yeah, and what I really like about this is it actually automates that process of checking network device compliance. That's a task that I think done manually is extremely difficult, right? So that ensures there's no hidden vulnerabilities or exposures. And what's customer feedback been like here?
Yeah, the customer feedback's been very good, in particular because the security compliance requirements are usually specified in plain language, and then it has to translate to a very technical evaluation of how the configuration is implemented on a specific device in a specific platform version. And so the feedback's been very, very good.
It's going to save hundreds of hours.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in the service provider and telco worlds where they have humongous networks, there's a lot of cost savings and resource savings with this one.
Resiliency saving, right? If you have vulnerabilities, there could be a lot of.
I think an area that's natural for agentic automation is SecOps. So Bhaskar, tell us about the SecOps agent and what makes this different from a traditional SOAR or SIM that companies might have today?
Absolutely. So one of the things we are going to show today is CVE, we call critical vulnerability exposure analysis or assessment agent, right? Because that is a very, very important part of the SecOps. As you know, there are so many vulnerabilities happening, SolarWinds, Cisco's, we are all familiar with that, right? So basically what it does, whenever this is very natural to the software or hardware vendors. Whenever they find some vulnerability, they share the CVEs, right? And they update databases like NIST, CISA. But it's just the updating databases, right? So maybe they will send notification or emails to customers. That's when the real problems. The customers then needs to figure out, okay, what all my entire network, what got exposed, and rectify it, right? Again, as network compliance one, it's a similar one. It consumes a lot of resources and a lot of manual hours. So the CVE agent, what it does, as soon as, it can be scheduled or on demand or periodically, right? Always looking for some CVE. Immediately, it goes and reads through what the exposure is and what kind of devices, what kind of OSs, and within that, what kind of configuration it is the vulnerable. It figures it out, and then it scans the entire environment and logs in to those particular devices and checks the configuration. And if it finds any vulnerability, the last part is customizable. Either you can it can create change requests, or it can automatically take corrective actions. We can put the human in the loop as well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that contextual correlation is really powerful, and especially being able to leverage AI to understand the intent, be able to prioritize the response. So Rached, maybe you can shed some light on what's happening technically behind the scenes to make that happen in real time.
Yeah, sure, Bob. So let's look at the screen here. So what I'm showing you, this is actually a really good showcase of how the data fabric, automation fabric, and AI fabric integrate with each other. The first thing that I'm going to show you here is what we call a pipeline that runs in the background that periodically checks this particular vulnerability database that the US government publishes. And we check it on a regular basis. And we compare it to any vulnerabilities we previously analyzed. And if we run into a new one that we haven't analyzed before, we actually feed it to the SecOps agent, to the CVE evaluator agent, and we launch it here. So it's being referred to here as a workflow, and I can show you what that looks like. It's called an agentic workflow, and we build these very dynamically in this drag and drop editor where we're able simply to add processing nodes to it. And it just steps through. Each one has a few instructions and variables that it's manipulating, and then when it runs, afterwards you get a report that gives you your vulnerability assessment. I can show you what that kind of report looks like. So the process basically looks like this. This is a manual version of the same thing that's running automatically in the background. And it's checking on a particular vulnerability. It looks it up in the database. And then you can see here that this is where most of the work is being done. right? Where it's looking through the network and it's evaluating the network's vulnerability to the particular vulnerability itself, and then produces a vulnerability report. In this case, the network was deemed to be vulnerable at these locations with these particular devices that were deemed vulnerable. So we're getting a complete comprehensive report. I should note that the agent is smart enough to examine the entire vulnerability bulletin and track down any subsequent or further details. It crawls, it does research to fill in information not only about how to diagnose the vulnerability, but how to remediate it. And so it comes up with a remediation plan and then pushes that particular report to a queue that is being monitored by another agent whose job it is to open a ticket and notify the appropriate people so that we can take action.
Excellent. I think that.
So Bob, just to point out, right, so earlier we talked about upskilling, right, and how we democratize this. So this is an example of how we democratize access, right? Just through conversational phrases, right, you can get this consolidated report. Similarly, there's this drag and drop interface for building those agents, right? Similarly, we have something called AI Canvas, which is really about generative UX. Right? Yeah. It's very powerful, and this is where we are moving from that last mile problem to actual automation and being able to change things on the fly, right? So this is really the power of agenting.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense, and it really highlights and demonstrates how organizations are going to be able to take advantage of it. Another key enterprise challenge is keeping configuration data accurate across these dynamic environments, especially now in distributed environments, right? Would be the other way to look at it. So Bhaskar, I'm wondering if you could talk about, how the service asset and configuration management agent addresses that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is one of my favorite agents. I will tell you at the end why, right? So obviously, service asset and configuration management. The purpose of this one is to identify all the inventory you have, the dependencies, the lifecycle management status, everything, so that when enterprises make change requests or there are issues, they can mitigate those risks, right? But the problem is it's an age-old problem, right? So CMDB is supposed to solve this problem. We know how more than 90% of CMDBs are either incomplete or inaccurate, right? So I mean, there is an obvious reason. The reason is in this vast distributed environments, figuring out what inventory you have and updating your database is not an easy task, especially if you've done it manually, right? That is where SACM agent comes into picture, right? So it has the ability to continuously discover full stack assets from infrastructure to applications and automatically update your asset management databases, whether it is CMDBs or something else, right? So that upstream applications that are depending on can benefit from it. In fact, actually, this is not by design. We created this capability to help AIOps effective correlations, because if you know the context, what is connected to infrastructure is connected to application, you can do better correlation. That is how we started, but then enterprises say, hey, we can use this capability for our CMDB synchronization and SACM updates as well, right? I will give you one example. I mean, you can guess the customer, largest healthcare in the West Coast, right? They have 7 data centers, 500K assets, and 800 hospitals. There used to be, before we put our platform on the agent, 2 engineers updating all the network devices in an Excel, right? If you are maintaining in Excel, it's a Golden Gate effect, right? It needs to be repainted, outdated, right? And they used to send emails to, whenever there is a network upgrade, they used to send emails to application team because they don't know which application it will impact. That rudimentary, right? Now with this agent, continuous discovery, continuous automation really solves that problem. I would say any enterprise that has a lot of assets, if you can find what assets you have on any given time and what it is connected to, the opportunities for the cost and compliance optimization enormous.
Yeah, what I like about what you're doing here is you're not just providing visibility, but actual closed loop compliance. So the agent can detect the drift,
correct,
and then fix it automatically.
Exactly.
Right. So
exactly.
as a former network engineer, I can really appreciate that.
Yes.
I wish you were around when I was running networks.
Absolutely.
Maybe we can look at the SACM agent, in action. what I can show you here in our Copilot UI is a very high-level request that we're making. You know, asset intelligence is normally something that involves looking through a lot of tables and running a lot of calculations and doing a lot of sorts and filters. But we can ask the agent some pretty high-level questions here, like this one, and it'll generate for us a really comprehensive report that tells us exactly the information that we're looking for. But in addition to that, what Shailesh mentioned earlier is we have visual tools, right? So the agent has access to all of the power of the Fabrix platform to generate compelling visualizations. I can actually show you what that looks like. This was generated for me by the agent as a part of the request that I placed to it. And it's showing me a visualization of where I am with the end of life and end of support picture for my infrastructure. And because it's an agent, and because it's it's being run right now within a interactive environment, I can ask a follow-up question. I could say, show me the breakdown of how because I noticed right here there's a lot of expiring things. Look at this. I have a lot of expired assets. I want to know, well, what are they? So I simply ask the agent to give me that. It runs a bunch of tools, and it provides for me a report that's giving me the exact breakdown of how the expiring assets break down, what the vendors, what the types, and so on and so forth. So this is a great example of how the higher level of intelligence that you're looking for from an agent, the higher level of analysis and abstraction that you're looking for, is provided by our agents. It's what somebody might spend several hours interacting with tables in order to produce.
Yeah, and this is where the difference between AIOps and agentic operations comes in, right? So rather than staring at a dashboard and trying to interpret that, here you're asking the LLM to generate this graph or dashboard, right? Yeah. You can make changes on the fly, right? So that is what differentiates really AgentOps, right?
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think we wanted to go through 3 or 4 of them. So I think the one that we wanted to talk about would be interesting is the Splunk SRE agent. And I find that interesting because it's part of the shows and demonstrates the ecosystem play with your partners that you have. So Rached, could you walk us through how this agent augments site reliability teams?
Yeah, sure. So we have a lot of customers that do use Splunk, yeah. and our platform integrates with it, and our agents are able to leverage that integration in order to produce insights that are going across platforms. So you can see here as this is an example of that particular agent doing its thing, where I'm asking it to look at ITSI episodes in order to identify specific events that occurred in the network. So if you look at the screen, you can see my request over here where I'm basically asking it to list those episodes. In this case, there's only 2 of them, but I want to drill down on one of the episodes. I make that request in whatever format that I want, and it goes and retrieves that detail for me and then produces a root cause analysis for me, where it's really breaking it down in a great level of detail and always gives me recommended next steps and potentially can take those steps for me. So here I'm just kind of like stopping at the recommendation stage, but I can also show you in the next demo what happens when we go beyond that.
Yeah, and just one point to make out, right? So earlier we were talking about the AI projects doesn't need to be in silos, right? They have to be integrated in existing workflows. So this is a perfect example of that because there's a vast Splunk install base out there who can benefit out of that. It's the same workflow essentially becoming intelligent now.
Got it.
So what I'm showing you here right now is an incident inside the Fabrix platform where we detected several alerts that the system automatically correlated and automatically generated a network incident because there was some sort of a fault that occurred in the network. So you can see right now that this incident's already been resolved. So I'm showing you something that happened this morning, right? But we can still look at what happened because this happened completely automatically. This is not now, I'm not showing you the Copilot interface. I'm showing you the automated fruit of the agent's labor. So the incident occurred and the agent automatically performed a root cause analysis. And you can see the report from that root cause analysis here where it correctly identified what the problem was, that somebody actually shut down an interface. And it recommends a set of actions. but it doesn't actually perform those actions. What it does is it submits that recommendation for user approval. This is keeping the human in the loop, which our customers are very, very interested in. So what you ended up here is, we have this approval queue. You can see several kind of approval requests that have been sent in. The user can, take an approval request and either, approve or reject it. They can review it. In this case, it was approved, and as a result of that, if I click on the remediation steps, you can see that the agent that picked up the work after the user approved the work is producing a full report. Prior to executing the command, it runs a quick impact assessment. If it verifies that the impact is minimal or that it's actually positive, it's going to go and proceeds, and it ran the commands that were recommended. And then afterwards, it actually verifies that everything that it tried to do resulted in the desired outcome, that everything was successful. It's kind of a pre-check, post-check situation, just like you would normally see in a network operations environment. So we think this is a pretty cool use case, and it's proven itself to be pretty responsive and resilient to real network events.
Yeah, and just to add a little more color to this is a very important demo, by the way, Bob. If you remember when we first started talking, you wanted to specifically see human in loop, right?
Yeah.
And this is part of building that trust, right? So kind of if I were to summarize, right? So I call this agentic operating model, right? So customers have to embrace this. And what does it constitute of? It basically constitutes of trust. It constitutes of observability, explainability, governance, and security. Yeah. These are the 5 pillars you have to have in an enterprise-grade platform, right? And that's what we have the capabilities. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, having transparency into
Absolutely.
all of those things is going to be what accelerates that time to comfort with the technology.
Right.
We're able to accelerate the adoption of it and use and value of it to an enterprise.
Right.
Yeah, and the real power here is it automates work, it detects, diagnoses, and even fixes routine tasks while still escalating things that are more complex up to human. And so what's the feedback from customers then?
Yeah, so human in the loop across the board, all customers want it, right? I mean, we can imagine. When I was driving Tesla, I got the autopilot. It took me 6 to 9 months to really use it, right? So it takes time to build that trust, right? So there are 2 reasons, especially in RCA, once you root cause analysis, it is good to, trust but verify. They can validate. Not only validate, they build a knowledge base, right, for the future use cases. And then they can approve or deny and then kick off the actions, right? So I think maybe in a year or 2, once really the systems evolve and some of the use cases, then they can go full autonomous. But at this point, from our customers across the board, not at every juncture, but critical junctures put human in the loop.
Well, certainly thank you for all those examples. They really illustrate how agentic operations are already transforming reliability, security, and service management. Bhaskar, Rached, and Shailesh, thank you for showing us how Fabrix.ai is applying those concepts to real-world challenges.
Yeah, and I think what our takeaway here is these use cases show us that agentic AI isn't some distant vision concept. It's actually here, and you're delivering measurable value. So the combination of automation, context, and human oversight, I think is game-changing, and really is going to provide a lot of value to your customers.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, coming up next, we'll hear directly from customers and partners who are putting those agents to work and the business outcomes that they're realizing. Stay tuned.